Thank you everyone for joining. I'm going to have Kathy start it off. We're really excited to have you all, and we are recording this, so later you can go back and review it. Thank you. Kathy, I don't think we can hear you. Sorry. Thank you.
Oh, sorry. Okay, let me start over. So I want to welcome everybody to the ReeBroker Group November 2021 Realtor Training Opportunity. And today we're going to go over some of the changes to the C.A.R forms that are coming out in December. There's many new forms as well as revised forms. This is webinars, we're going to keep to about 30 minutes. So it's just a brief overview of the changes and how it affects your transactions and reporting them to us. So there's not an exact date yet for the release. When you go to create a transaction in zip forms, the system's going to automatically just generate the form for you. So we'll keep up to date on that with our system as well to release those checklists. And so go ahead. Yeah, next. Okay, so with that, the documents that are revised, here's the new construction purchase agreement. That's going to have revisions. Already built subdivision purchase agreement, that's a new one. You're going to only use that one when a residence has been completed and is subject to a public report. Then you got the condominium conversion subdivision purchase agreement. Only use that one when it's part of a condominium conversion project. And that's a revised form. So one of the things is with these forms, there's so many revisions to some of them that even before you talk with your clients about the forms, you want to make sure you've read the form first, because some of the things that we are just used to dealing with in the past that were just customary, they may be totally different now. So make sure you do get a chance to read those forms first. Next, Jetta. So these documents that are being referred to as new forms, since there's so many revisions, so the RPA, it's more organized and eventually it should be easier to follow than the RIPA, CPA, the VLPA, and the NODPA. All of those have had major revisions as well. So at the end of this presentation, we provided a link so that you can review these forms before they actually come out. Go ahead, next, Jeva. And then the addendums, these particular addendums are going to populate when you check them on the purchase agreement. So you got your probate, manufactured, the tenant occupied property addendum, that one totally different now versus the current RPA. It should be checked whether you have tenants or if they're going to remain or not remain in the property, because the current RPA says that they'll be out when the default says that they'll be out at close of escrow. And we actually just had a transaction that it wasn't marked because of the default. The agent from the other company, she's like, it was never agreed upon. Well, our agent did fill out the purchase agreement correctly because it was the default, and that saved that transaction. So next, Jeva. So tenancy in common is an arrangement in which two or more people have ownership interest in a property. If you're working on this type of transaction, be sure to review all of these new forms, the addendum, the advisory, and a financial disclosure statement. Next. Okay, totally new form, stock cooperative purchase addendum. And so this is the most stock cooperative projects are of an apartment house type operated by a board of directors and including community recreation facilities. This is becoming more popular in California. If you want to find out more about this, you can read into the Davis-Sterling Act. That's got some interesting information on there. Check title, see if that applies. there's a whole document for that as well. And one of the things I wanted to mention is with any new project, if you're marking these documents on your purchase agreement to be included, you want to double check to make sure that they do populate, because in the training that we've done going through up to this point with C.A.R, we see that there's a couple issues that they're having. And so just make sure that you have those forms so you don't get all the way through your transaction and realize it was never executed. So next, Jeva. Okay, so information on dampness and mold for renters in California. That's a really good form to use. Very informative. Option and upgrades addendum to new construction. Completed new home construction purchase addendum. So all of those forms, revisions, new forms. Residential lease month-to-month rental agreement. That's another one that's been revised as well. So then, as I mentioned, we do have the link to C.A.R that you can go and check out these forms in further detail. Next, Jeva. And then, so if you're going to, excuse me. Oh. So now we're going to go into more detail about some of the highlights of the redesigned and more organized RPA. So it's now 16 pages versus 10. It has a grid with the negotiation points on page 1. The paragraphs are more organized. Some of the graphs have been clarified better. Excuse me. Some of the paragraphs have been clarified better. And one good thing is all the contingencies are located in one area now. Okay. Then there's an additional 60 forms that are mentioned in the RPA. And as I mentioned, many of them will populate with the purchase agreement. One of the features is the TOA form. This is a form that will populate only when you run out of character space in a particular field. And the form cannot be found separately in C.A.R forms. As I mentioned, it's only when you run out of character space in a field. Then, and with that form, it may not be applicable to all forms. So you're going to have to just test it and see. You may have to still use an addendum in some areas. Okay, so then I wanted to remind everybody about the agency disclosure and possible representation forms. They're to be reviewed and signed by the applicable party prior to signing the listing agreement or the purchase agreement. If you're conducting a dual agency, you want to make sure that you're using the ReBroker Group dual agency form that you can obtain from the library. And that one needs to be signed as well prior to the purchase agreement being signed. So, okay, you have a next. So this is going to be an interesting area for negotiations and for it's the percentage area that C.A.R has now added to the RPA. So you'll be able to enter your percentage, say for a purchase amount for your initial deposit, but then if you get a counter and they state a specific amount, a new purchase price, it doesn't change the percentage. You have to actually state that on your negotiations. So there can be some confusion with that. And I foresee some confusion on that. So make sure that you're paying special attention. If you're, say, listing agent, that, if you're expecting them to be putting 3% down, that you mention that it's 3%, because as it's stated on here, the percentage number above is for calculating purposes and is not a contractual term. So that percentage is mentioned several times in a few areas on the purchase agreement. So if it's applicable to your transaction, double check that area, because you don't want your seller thinking they're getting 3% when it says 10% or $10,000 on a $2 million transaction. So, all right. So the loan contingency, go ahead and switch, is now 17 days versus 21. And one of the things that they've added is these boxes where you can mark if your buyer is pre-qual, pre-approved, or fully written pre-approval. So we've listed here what the difference is between the three. Pre-qual is the verbal approval. Pre-approval, the lender has verified the 2 years taxes, W-2s, bank statements, etc. The fully written pre-approval, which not all lenders will do this. It has been reviewed by an underwriter and is approved. All the buyer documentation has been submitted. The purchase agreement, appraisal, prelim are the things that the lender is going to need to finish that transaction, and possibly a few other conditions that might show up at the end. But what that will do is that type of approval will give the buyer potentially the same financial ability as a cash buyer. So that's a nice feature. You have a next. So if your clients do need a pre-approval, we do have our ReBroker Group Loan Division. You can find this area on your website or on your homepage. You just click through and give your clients the link to start their loan application. Also, if you are working closely with the mortgage loan originator from the ReBroker Group, you can earn up to $300 on your broker split. Click through on that link to find out what you have to do in order to earn that $300 towards your transaction. You have a next. Okay, next we're going to go over just a few of the contingencies here. On the appraisal part, this is interesting. If you're using the FHA or VA, if you mark no appraisal contingency, they actually added this additional wording. Removal of the appraisal contingency does not eliminate the appraisal cancellation rights in the FVAC. So that can be confusing to a seller where they see that box marked, and or if you just tell them, hey, they removed their appraisal, you want to make sure that your seller knows that if for some reason it doesn't appraise, they do have the ability to back out, or hopefully you can renegotiate on that. So also on the contingencies, if you're marking loan, no loan contingency or no appraisal contingency, you don't have to add a C.A.R to the purchase agreement, the contingency removal form. You just mark those boxes. So C.A.R has separated this out. So starting at L3 and down, any of those that are removed, you do have to add the C.A.R form. So as I mentioned, if you check the box, it should generate, but if there's any glitches, you want to make sure that you do add that form with the purchase agreement. As a reminder, C.A.R has the form in their legal sample documents called Acting Against Broker's Advice. You want to make sure that anytime those contingencies are released, that you're using that form. And go ahead, Yetta, next. Okay, so the next part we want to talk about is any total or partial assignment. It shall not relieve the buyer or buyer's obligations pursuant to the agreement unless otherwise agreed. So remember the C.A.R form AOAA. This is one that, for whatever reason, it's confusing to people. If you add someone to the transaction, you have to have them go back and add or sign all of the previous documentation. So the C.A.R has also changed it. So this assignment must be done within 17 days of acceptance. Okay. So then next we wanted to mention that C.A.R states that the termite report should be done on a request for repairs, or an AEA. That's a form too that a lot of people are not familiar with. We do have in our document library, it's a sample PowerPoint that C.A.R put together. Really good information that you should, if you're not using the AEA form, you should look into that to see how that would work with your transaction. One of the things that they suggest is that instead of stating the termite inspection on the purchase agreement, they're suggesting that it be done on a BIE. And then from there, move forward with whether you're going to do a request for repairs or the AEA form. And then if a home warranty is on the purchase agreement, the lender is going to require that home warranty invoice. So you should provide that to your lender as soon as possible, because as soon as the contingencies are released, that should be provided, because that will hold up your processing of the loan. Then another thing that C.A.R suggested is if the buyer doesn't, is tight on funds, maybe just hold off on doing the home warranty. They can add it at a later time if necessary. So we recommend that they get a home warranty. So you have a next. So the C.A.R form authorization to convey. So this is one form that whenever you're in the past, we wanted to talk with the lender or anyone involved with on the buyer side of the transaction. This form was required. Well, now the default wording in the purchase agreement states that, I'm going to go ahead and read this out because this is an interesting part, because we get a lot of questions when there's a delay in the transaction. So buyer authorizes seller and seller's authorized agent to contact buyer's lender to determine the status of the buyer's loan specified in paragraph 3E, or any alternative loan buyer pursues, whether or not a contingency of this agreement. If the contact information for the buyer's lender is different from the provided under the terms of the paragraph 6B, buyer shall deliver the updated contact information within 1 day of seller's request. So remember, always get permission if you change lenders first before doing so, because seller doesn't have to agree to changing lenders on that. Another thing too, on these, when there's a paragraph mentioned on the purchase agreement, it's C.A.R now allows you to click on that and you'll be able to go to between the graph and the paragraph 3E. So that's a nice feature. I don't know how that'll be available though, if it'll be on PDFs. I think it's just one in their system. So we'll have to try that out. You have a next? Okay. And then due to the extent of changes with the C.A.R forms and how they vary on the terms with the current forms, as I mentioned, read all of the pages of documentation. I actually printed it out, read it again, and then because during some of the training just this last week, there's been some issues that C.A.R may have not addressed already. So I would check again when the contract comes back, the completed contract comes out in December. Okay, so what we've done here is we've listed additional training from all of the, if you want to take additional training, which we are requiring that you do so. And what we've noticed is that each presenter has a unique way of presenting the information and providing additional information. So, if you get one source from C.A.R, you may also want to do your local association of realtors. Then as well as C.A.R does have some pre-recorded webinars. What I would suggest, because there's so many changes, is to go to the more recent webinars and watch those as well. And then if you find that you still need additional help after going through all of these different sources of training, we do have our mentorship program. So you have a next. And then there you can read more about it on your agent tools page. So was there any questions so far about the information that's been provided?
I wanted to say, yes, we will be emailing a copy of this presentation. We'll be posting it on our website too. So everyone will be able to find it.
Very
and
good.
then I don't see any other questions, Kathy.
Okay, great. Paige, would you like to go ahead and mention this part about the marketing?
Sure. Thanks everyone for your patience. I'll just take a quick minute. Wanted to remind everyone that all first point of contact materials, including your email signature, require your name, license number, and your broker's name and license number. And I always highly recommend adding your phone number to your email signature as well to make it easier for your clients to get a hold of you if needed. All of the information about what is required or what is not allowed can be found on your marketing guide in the document library. After going over that, if you have any questions, you can feel free to contact compliance at REeBrokerCA.com. Thank you so much.
Very good. So one of the things I wanted to mention about that is we have some people that will take a variation of the company name. Some people just list it as ReBroker. Some people add ReBroker Group Inc. We want to make sure for branding purposes that everybody stays with ReBroker Group. And you want to also check your CAR forms. Make sure that your CAR forms are printing with the correct information. If you don't have a branch license, which only broker associates are eligible for a branch license, you do have to use the ReBroker Group corporate office address, and that address is listed on our website if you need that. All right, next, yeah. So if you have any ideas or anything you'd like to see added to future webinars or to our website or to the agent tools, please let us know. You can send those to idea@ReBrokerCA.com. Then also our next meeting, we moved it because of the holiday season. We're going to have it now on Thursday, December 16th at 9:30 a.m. All right, if there's no further questions, then we'll go ahead and end the webinar.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you.